In a dramatic military operation that shocked the region, the United States seized a Venezuelan oil tanker off the Caribbean coast. The incident, captured on military video, shows commandos rappelling from helicopters onto the vessel in what the Trump administration calls a crackdown on illegal oil trafficking. But Venezuela's government is furious, calling it an act of international piracy that marks a dangerous new chapter in their conflict with Washington. The seized vessel, called the Skipper, was taken in a coordinated raid involving thousands of troops and the USS Gerald Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced that the Skipper had been involved in what she called illicit oil shipping and would be transported to an American port for processing. The vessel had been under U.S. Treasury sanctions since 2022 for alleged involvement in oil smuggling that generated revenue for Hezbollah and Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. But the seizure is just the beginning. The Trump administration has now sanctioned 6 additional ships suspected of carrying Venezuelan oil. The administration has also targeted President Nicolás Maduro's inner circle, placing sanctions on some of his relatives and businesses associated with his government. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said these measures are designed to hold the regime accountable for what he describes as dictatorial and brutal control and continued crimes. Venezuela's response has been swift and angry. President Maduro accused the United States of kidnapping the crew and stealing the ship. He declared that America had ushered in a new era of criminal naval piracy in the Caribbean. Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello was even more pointed, calling Americans murderers, thieves, and pirates, and suggesting the U.S. was using these tactics as part of a pattern of starting wars around the world. The clash reflects a fundamental disagreement over Venezuela's vast oil resources. Venezuela is home to some of the world's largest proven oil reserves, but the country's economy has been crippled by years of mismanagement and international isolation. The Trump administration accuses Venezuela of funneling narcotics into the United States and using oil revenue to fund what it calls a rogue and illegitimate regime. Venezuela, in turn, accuses Washington of attempting to steal its natural resources and undermine its sovereignty. On Wednesday, President Maduro vowed that Venezuela would never become an oil colony. He framed the U.S. actions as part of a broader campaign of imperialism and resource theft. But White House Press Secretary Leavitt made clear that the administration is committed to both stopping the flow of illegal drugs into the country and enforcing sanctions against what it deems an illegitimate government. The administration has significantly ramped up its military presence in the Caribbean in recent weeks. Thousands of American troops have been positioned in the region, and the USS Gerald Ford, capable of carrying more than 65 aircraft, has been moved within striking distance of Venezuela. This military buildup represents a dramatic escalation and sends a clear message about Washington's willingness to use force to enforce its policies. When asked whether the U.S. planned to seize more ships, Leavitt would not commit either way. Instead, she reiterated the administration's position: "We're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which will fuel narco-terrorism of rogue and illegitimate regimes around the world." Interestingly, Russian President Vladimir Putin called Maduro earlier in the day to offer Moscow's support in the face of growing pressure from Washington. When told about Putin's call, Leavitt said President Trump would not be concerned at all. This reflects the broader geopolitical tensions, with Russia positioning itself as a counterweight to American influence in the Western Hemisphere. The Skipper seizure also marks an escalation in violence at sea. In recent months, dozens of people have been killed in strikes on boats that the U.S. alleged were carrying drugs from Venezuela. American naval forces have become increasingly aggressive in intercepting vessels they suspect are involved in smuggling operations. This raid on the Skipper represents a new level of direct military action against Venezuela. The sanctions imposed on Maduro's relatives include 3 of his wife's nephews, according to Treasury officials. The administration also targeted multiple businesses and shipping entities allegedly connected to the regime. Bessent emphasized that these measures are part of a comprehensive strategy to isolate Maduro's government and cut off the financial resources that sustain his control. Maduro has been in power since 2013, following the death of Hugo Chavez. Over the past decade, His government has become increasingly authoritarian, with widespread reports of human rights abuses, political repression, and corruption. The country's economy has collapsed, leading to massive migration and humanitarian suffering. Yet Maduro has maintained power through control of the military and oil revenues. The U.S. has long supported opposition to Maduro's government. Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado has emerged as a leading opposition figure, though she has been barred from running in elections. The Trump administration has made clear it views Maduro as illegitimate and is willing to use military and economic pressure to change the situation. This latest escalation raises serious questions about what comes next. Will more ships be seized? Could direct military conflict break out? How will Russia and other nations respond to increased American military presence in the region? These questions loom large as tensions continue to mount in the Caribbean. The oil is at the heart of the dispute. Venezuela's economy depends almost entirely on oil exports, but international sanctions and mismanagement have crippled production. The country that once pumped 3 million barrels per day now produces a fraction of that. U.S. sanctions make it nearly impossible for Venezuela to sell oil on the international market, further strangling the economy. The question of who controls Venezuela's resources and whether the regime can monetize them is the underlying economic and political struggle. The Trump administration argues it's enforcing sanctions to combat drug trafficking and support democracy. Maduro argues the U.S. is engaged in economic warfare and resource theft. Both sides see themselves as fighting for Venezuela's future. For ordinary Venezuelans, caught in the middle of this conflict, the situation is desperate. Millions have fled the country in recent years, seeking better lives elsewhere. Those who remain face shortages of food, medicine, and basic necessities. The international sanctions, while designed to pressure the government, also make life harder for the general population. The skipper seizure sends a powerful signal to other maritime companies and shipping firms. Any vessel suspected of carrying Venezuelan oil now risks being intercepted and seized by American forces. This is likely to further disrupt whatever limited oil trade Venezuela still maintains, potentially accelerating economic collapse or forcing Maduro to negotiate. Looking ahead, several scenarios are possible. The Trump administration could continue escalating, seizing more ships, tightening sanctions, and expanding military presence. Venezuela could seek closer ties with Russia, China, or other nations willing to challenge American power. Or negotiations could eventually begin, though neither side currently seems interested in compromise. What's clear is that the U.S.-Venezuela conflict is entering a more dangerous phase. Military action has replaced purely economic pressure. The stakes are rising. And as this standoff intensifies, the world watches to see whether this becomes a regional crisis or something far worse. The seizure of the skipper may be just the beginning of a much larger confrontation between Washington and Caracas over power, resources, and influence in the Western Hemisphere.